spoke about the 3 R's, the remorse, regret and reminisce. And the most hateful one, which actually most people don't talk about, is resentment. Resentment is, for most people, a thing that most people do not seem to want to understand, but it's actually very complex. Resentment actually is what can make people very ill. So when we think of the word resentment, we think of bitterness, and it's complex and it's multi-layered emotions. And it's usually a mixture of disappointment, disgust and anger. It's actually, resentment is worse than remorse, regret and reminisce. Because psychologists consider it a mood or a secondary emotion. And this resentment is a perception of unfairness. And it can be from the very trivial to the very serious. And it's a generalized defense against unfair situations. Resentment can be in relationships, unfavorable circumstances. And it's actually from the French word, which is to feel and to resent, and it actually becomes synonymous with anger, spite and holding a grudge. And with holding a grudge, that then means that you don't know how to forgive. Being angry makes you ill. And when you get angry, then that illness can cause illnesses within the body. Now, holistic therapists believe that if you have anger or spite or resentment or holding a grudge, that manifests into things as heart attacks, diet issues, weight issues, even the big C. So resentment has to be working out the idea of fairness and justice. But again, having resentment is also having regret on the choices, remorse that you made the wrong choice, and then the reminisce of something was better before. Again, all these things are multi-layered, and the more they multi-layer, they cause more issues. It's why people who have things like ME, MS, seeps their body, makes them very ill. And then the other thing is as well, is the resentment is that incident such as voicing any protests, discrimination, envy, jealousy. These are all things which cause, and these hateful feelings just cause more and more disturbing memories of hurtful experiences. And people recall them more. The thing is, people in the real world is actually, we in our way as humans, we remember bad things and hurtful things more than good things. It's something part of our brain. So the idea of when we use the reminiscence, we're using good ideas to cloud the brain in the conscious, because the subconscious has resentment. And that's why the idea of the forgiveness, which I've spoken about in another post, forgiveness is essential. Because without forgiveness, that resentment will eat you up. Anger, disgust, it causes injury in more ways, just not only in the physical body, but it causes in the mental body, and it also causes the attitudes of who you are. And it also leads to jealousy, because jealousy then also causes the other issue of this, of resentment. It causes the sickness of this. Being jealous of other people is not a good emotion, because what it does, it causes the idea of, when we're looking at people in a way of how do we regard ourselves. So we see ourselves here, someone else, oh, they're more successful than us. But you don't realise that person could have made, the choices are different. They also could have gone through a lot more battles to get there. So you're here, they're there, and you think, oh, well, I should be there because I'm just as good as them. But you don't know how they got to there. So this idea of jealousy and resentment is actually quite evil. I mean, look at it with me. I'm bald-headed. I don't have resentment to people who have hair, because I've had hair before. In my 20s, I had long, curly hair. And people used to think I looked like I was either Jewish or was Islamic or was Indian because I had this massive curly hair. It was ridiculous. Looked like bleeding. You know, I had even people think I was Jesus in the streets. You know, so you've got to look at it that was then, this is now. And I look at everything as that, yes, that was my 20s. In my 30s, I've been bald-headed, and now I'm 41, 42 in October. I look at this, that everything is about growing and maturing and evolving. You know, people could be like, oh, well, you've got grey in your beard. Well, oh, you know, you must feel, you know, don't you wish you had your, you know, not grey? No, it shows that there's wisdom there. See, it's always about changing the negative to the positive. And if you're full of resentment, and reminisce and regret and remorse, it will hurt you. It will hurt you. And it will hurt you in many ways. And I think, especially for myself, one of the reasons why I got over resentment or anger or regret or remorse was sometimes I've held anger in before. You know, I can be quite temperamental. And what happened for me was I was actually teaching in India, and I was travelling around India, and I got kidney stones. And I actually had developed them over years, just through stress and everything else. And after having them, I realised that me holding on to that just made me realise having 4 kidney stones at 1 centimetre each hurting me, and I felt so out of it that I felt weak. I realised that actually there are just some things I cannot change, and I have to accept that the world is what it is. And once you do that, resentment leaves. And I tell you what, the more you lose resentment and the way you lose remorse and regret, and I'm still going, there's sometimes, as much as I say I don't have regret, there's some regret sometimes you pick up. Some things happen sometimes. But from experience of people who have regret, and I'm looking after mum who I'm caring for, she's got loads of regrets. She has remorse. To be honest, her remorse is actually linked to grief, because she's never, after 26 years, got over my father's death. And it's made her ill. She's got arthritis, it's made her sick, she can't hardly walk. And this is the thing, when you start noticing people are ill, that's because they have the 3 R's of remorse, regret and reminisce, and then they have that resentment. And they'll say, oh, I don't have resentment. They do. And that's what makes people sick. So when you're looking at these R's, try and think about, if you're ill, what is that linked to? So even if you don't come to me as a therapist, and I can help you out with different things, you've got to look at where this is coming from. And resentment, I would guarantee, makes up at least 60-70% of your problems, along with remorse, regret and reminisce.